I'm sorry I'm giving this message from my own living room in Oxford, not from the Sheldonian Theatre. However hard I've tried with the background to this shot, I'm acutely aware it ain't Christopher Wren. I'm sorry too that I haven't had the chance to consolidate my claims, my wannabe claims to be part of St Hilda's College, Oxford, who were organising the event. And I'm sorry on a personal level that this late March 2020 springtime emergence, which was going to be for me a bit of a landmark coming back after a period of ill health, might have even flashed a little bit of my new hair. That's not going to happen, but it will wait. Lots of people are in similar or worse situations. But most of all, I'm disappointed that now hasn't been the time to have a conversation with Val McDermid. Val's a writer I've admired since I first read her Lindsay Gordon books in the late 1980s, and I've watched this meteoric and kind of wonderful literary and cultural career since then. It would have been fantastic to chat about that and about how all her experience has brought her to something a little bit closer to my expertise, writing a play about the death of the playwright Christopher Marlowe. I've read a draft of Val's play and it's brilliant. It's so interesting to see how she has brought her narrative and investigative intelligence to that story. And it's going to be a brilliant play when the theatres light up and we're able to see it. One of the things I wanted to ask Val was which of her detectives she would want to give the task of reinvestigating, reopening the case of Christopher Marlowe. Who did you think would be most able to get to the truth? I was thinking, one of the things I like about Karen Peary is right from the beginning of her career with Val, she has shown herself to be completely indifferent to and strong against any kind of pressure. The establishment can't shut Karen up. They can't make her tell the story that they want. And that might be a useful skill in the Marlowe case. There are some interesting vested interests which perhaps haven't been completely excavated hanging around that case. Tony Hill and Carol Jordan, well, they're the king and queen, aren't they, of the cold case. They're brilliant at going back over little details in the evidence, things that could reopen or reignite the questions about what really happened. So they'd be good. Kate Brannigan, I think, is probably my favourite. She would be good, particularly, I think, because since she's not institutionally aligned, she's a private detective, she can skim along the law of legal lines, let's say. She's good at jimmying a lock or doing a bit of work in the kind of underworld in Manchester. I think she'd be pretty good in Deptford. I think I would give it to Brannigan, but I'd love to know what Val would say to that. And I also wanted to bring our conversation slightly wider in a way. One of the things I've long been interested in is the way that detective stories from the earliest, from Poe or from Conan Doyle or something, how those stories are really almost exemplary literary texts. And that's because they give out the information to the reader in bits. They need the reader to keep coming to their own conclusions, to keep filling in the gaps. They're like all stories in that sense, but they make it much clearer that the author knows everything about the story, presumably from the start, but is giving it to us in a very particular order, and with a particular aim in helping us to think through or to make sense of the evidence ourselves. That's what we do when we read anything. And it's one of the aspects I wanted to bring out in my book about Shakespeare. The book's called This Is Shakespeare, which I think is a bit hubristic. But what I mean by is, that's the most academic line in the world, isn't it? What I mean by what I mean by the title is that what Shakespeare is to me is an act of engagement or interrogation. It's what happens when we and Shakespeare meet. It's not a monolith. It's not something far away from us. It's something that we need to engage with, just as we need to engage with detective stories. We need to be there, filling in some of the gaps, making our own assessments of the evidence, thinking through, being active, being Shakespearean. And I wanted to get away from an idea of Shakespeare as an exam text or as a kind of dutiful thing that we have to do, and bring back some of the excitement that I think there is when we think about a Shakespeare who has really got lots of space for us and for us in our different ways. I've never really understood why people dismiss their own views about literature by saying, that's just a modern perspective. I mean, modern perspectives is exactly what we need. That's why these texts are worth our reading now, because they have something to say to us. They haven't finished telling us what they have to say, and they haven't finished hearing what we have to say in response. So I was really keen to think about those kinds of larger questions about detective fictions as the ultimate kind of literature, the ultimate example of how writers and readers interact and create meaning together, and to think about how that material might help us think again about Shakespeare. So, Val, I'm looking forward to that conversation. Everyone else, keep safe. All this stuff will be back, and wow, won't we appreciate it when it is. Thanks.